Your countries are going to hell, that we will blow you out of existence. Carbon footprint is a hoax made up by people with evil intentions, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood.
President Donald Trump opened his second-term UNGA 80 address in trademark fashion, turning technical glitches into political theater. He ridiculed the United Nations for what he called incompetence, mocking both a broken teleprompter and a malfunctioning escalator at UN headquarters. Trump said those failures summed up the inefficiency of the institution, arguing that while the UN had been absent in helping him resolve global conflicts, it had managed to deliver only a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen, but she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much. And by the way, it's working now. It just went on. Thank you.
The president quickly pivoted to a sweeping attack on Europe, accusing the continent of facing destruction at its own hands. Trump said uncontrolled migration had turned into an invasion, warning that leaders were too politically correct to act. He also denounced Europe's suicidal green energy policies, claiming they were bankrupting economies and accelerating societal collapse. His message was blunt. Open borders and climate agendas would be the death of Western Europe unless immediately reversed.
Europe is in serious trouble. They've been invaded by a force of illegal aliens like nobody's ever seen before. Illegal aliens are pouring into Europe. Nobody is ever, and nobody's doing anything to change it, to get them out. It's not sustainable. And because they choose to be politically correct, they're doing just absolutely nothing about it. And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. So changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained.
Turning to the Middle East, Trump condemned Hamas and denounced the October 7th attacks. But he also turned his ire on close U.S. allies and UN members pushing for recognition of a Palestinian state. He argued that legitimizing Palestinian statehood at this moment would embolden Hamas, reward terrorism, and undermine peace. He insisted that no recognition could happen while hostages remained in captivity and while Hamas continued to reject ceasefire offers.
Unfortunately, Hamas has repeatedly rejected reasonable offers to make peace. We can't forget October 7th, can we? Now, as if to encourage continued conflict, some of this body is seeking to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. The rewards would be too great for Hamas terrorists for their atrocities. This would be a reward for these horrible atrocities, including October 7th, even while they refuse to release the hostages or accept a ceasefire. Instead of giving to Hamas and giving so much, because they've taken so much, this could have been solved so long ago.
Trump then turned to Europe's largest war, insisting the Russia-Ukraine conflict would never have started had he been president during its outbreak. He said the war had become a disaster for Moscow, noting thousands of weekly deaths on both sides. But he accused China and India of financing Russia's war machine by purchasing oil, while NATO allies compounded the crisis by continuing to import Russian energy. Trump said Europe was effectively funding its own destruction, urging immediate cuts to Russian oil and gas to force Moscow to the table.
The only question now is how many more lives will be needlessly lost on both sides. China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly.
The US president's address also reached across the Atlantic to South America, where he targeted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Trump declared that Caracas was not just corrupt, but running full-fledged trafficking and terror networks that threatened American lives. He announced that Venezuelan gangs, including Tren de Aragua, had been designated terrorist organizations and vowed that the US military would destroy them. His stark warning to smugglers and cartels was unequivocal. "We will blow you out of existence."
For this reason, we've recently begun using the supreme power of the United States military to destroy Venezuelan terrorists and trafficking networks led by Nicolas Maduro. To every terrorist thug smuggling poisonous drugs into the United States of America, please be warned that we will blow you out of existence. That's what we're doing. We have no choice. Can't let it happen. They're destroying. I believe we lost 300,000 people last year to drugs. 300,000.
Energy and climate dominated another section of Trump's speech. He derided renewable sources as expensive failures, championed fossil fuels and coal, and praised countries like Germany for returning to traditional energy. He said the global climate agenda was nothing more than a scam, branding carbon footprint measures a hoax. Trump insisted that Europe's climate policies were not saving lives, but costing hundreds of thousands annually in heat-related deaths. He portrayed the green scam as a double threat, destroying economies and leaving nations vulnerable to collapse.
No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I'm the President of the United States, but I worry about Europe. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe.
Trump closed with tough words for Latin America's largest democracy, Brazil. He accused President Lula's government of undermining freedoms through censorship, judicial corruption, and targeting political opponents. The US president warned that Brazil faced major tariffs in retaliation for what he called unprecedented interference in the rights of Americans. He also dismissed Brazil's economic strength, declaring that the country would fail without the United States.
Brazil now faces major tariffs in response to its unprecedented efforts to interfere in the rights and freedoms of our American citizens and others, with censorship, repression, weaponization, judicial corruption, and targeting of political critics in the United States. I have a little problem saying this because I must tell you, I was walking in and the leader of Brazil was walking out. We saw him and I saw him, he saw me, and we embraced. And then I'm saying, can you believe I'm going to be saying this in just 2 minutes? But we actually agreed that we would meet next week. We didn't have much time to talk, like about 20 seconds. They were in retrospect, I'm glad I waited because this thing didn't work out too well. But we did talk, we had a good talk, and we agreed to meet next week, if that's of interest. But he seemed like a very nice man, actually.
President Trump's 56-minute UNGA 80 address was a relentless display of America first on the world stage. From mocking the UN to blasting Europe, condemning Hamas, threatening Maduro, ridiculing climate change, and warning Brazil, his words underscored a foreign policy built on confrontation, sovereignty, and unapologetic nationalism.